you. Hello, everybody, and I hope you did enjoy your lunch. I'm interested in that because I'm a scholar of food and its meanings. So I wanted you just to think for a moment of the last really happy occasion you went to and the food and drink that was served there. Might have been champagne, might have been today. But what about the not so happy times? What role can food play, and what can it tell us about these parts of our lives? I don't have my clicker. It's where you need a drink. Coming back to unhappy times. I'm going to talk to you today about the last meals that are served to condemned prisoners before they die. I'm fascinated by this for a couple of reasons. The first being that it is so strange to prepare and serve a meal for someone and then kill them. And the second reason that comes from my food studies background is how tiny bits of life that we think of as quite banal and mundane, what they can tell us about the biggest issues of life. It's worthy of stating here that more than 1/3 of the countries in the world still have capital punishment today, and many of those people on death row will be served a last meal before they're executed. We're quite familiar with the last meal. We all know this one. Gladiators in ancient Rome, before they went out into the arena, were served a quite sumptuous feast with the expectation that they would be killed that day. The Aztecs fed up their ritual sacrifice victims for up to a year before, tearing their beating hearts out. 18th century London, Newgate Prison. Wonderful day out if you want to go enjoy the execution. But the night before, Newgate Prison became quite famous for the riotous activities and parties that some of the condemned, if they could afford them, would host for themselves. And there'd be wild drinking, gambling, prostitutes would visit, and often a banquet. Now this is one that's much closer to home, so who knows where this is? Yes? Yes, which jail? Old Melbourne Jail, correct. And who is the most famous 19th century inmate of Old Melbourne Jail? Ned Kelly. Ned Kelly was incarcerated and executed in Old Melbourne Jail in 1880. Before his execution, he requested and was served his last meal. He duly got his roast lamb, his green peas, and his bottle of claret. Today, you can actually go to Old Melbourne Jail, and in the same area where Kelly walked and was executed, you can enjoy that same meal on the anniversary of his execution. It's a popular tourist attraction, so much so that it's often booked out far ahead. But would you want to go to a contemporary jail and do the same thing? Would any of us really want to go to that prison in Indonesia and eat what those 8 executed prisoners had a couple of weeks ago? In case you don't know, they had buckets of KFC, which was brought in by the Australian visitors. That's not that unusual. In America, which has the last meal request system, many prisoners request fast foods. The most common, cheeseburgers and chips, but ice cream, cookies, fizzy drinks, pizza are the most common meals really requested. Now, I find this very moving and actually really sad. And it's not the food choices. I mean, it's your last day on earth, you can have whatever you like. But to me, I think knowing this detail, knowing what these people wanted and what they were served, helps to build a bridge, at least between me and these people, And it rehumanises criminals. It takes them from being a crime, a sentence, a headline in the media, and makes them into people. And I guess that's what touches me. One man, only a few years ago in the United States, he requested a birthday cake for his last meal. He requested this, he said quite poignantly, I think. He wanted a birthday cake because he'd never in his life had one. Now, various anti-capital punishment activists have been able to harness the power of this information and use this quite successfully in their campaigns. And the number of countries which do have the death penalty is going down. It was a fantastic campaign, won awards in 2013 in Puerto Rico. What they did, they produced posters which had images of the executed criminal, a little bit of biographical information, and a picture of the last meal they had. Tellingly, underneath this information, for all the people that they featured, was the information that all had either been exonerated after they were executed or even found innocent before they were killed, but still executed. Now, this is a typical prison meal served in the US system. There, because of budget cuts and economic rationalism, in some states, when you make the last meal request, you don't actually get what you requested. You get the closest approximation to what's on that night's menu. So you could order what you think is going to be a delicious steak and some billowy mashed potatoes, and what you get is this. Now, some prisoners have expressed sincere gratitude about the way the prison cooks and others actually handled their last meal request. But others have resisted this part of the ritual entirely. They've either refused to order a meal, or when it's been delivered to them, they've declined it. Some have ordered ridiculous amounts of food. One stuffed olive was one of the requests, or a mountain of food enough to feed 20 people. Of course, many, when they're served this last meal, can't eat it. Because when it's your last meal and it comes, and it actually comes into your head that it's your last meal, that's not actually very appetising. So as a food studies scholar, for me, what this food, this last meal, this really tiny little bit of what might be a system which has someone in it for decades, this system that's capital punishment, I still think this meal has something significant to tell us. And for me, the message that the last meal has is about the brutality and the inhumanity of the death penalty and capital punishment. Thank you for listening.